The purpose of this episode is to give concrete tools for young men who can maybe use these tools to get married faster or get ready for marriage faster, right? I can't guarantee you getting married faster, but maybe I can get you ready for marriage faster, inshallah, right? Because ultimately, marriage is a form of risk, and you can try your best, but Allah will determine when you get married. First step, take account for yourself, right? This is just basically like we about to start anything in life, right? Take account for yourself. Really look at yourself and where you are in every area in life. What are your flaws? Look at your strengths. This isn't the time to be hard on yourself. This is just a time to just take account. Which ways do you know you need to mature? Which ways do you think you can actually provide in a relationship? Like, what are your strengths? A good example of this is like, ask yourself, like, just what are you capable of doing at this moment in time? And again, it's not about judgment. It's just about just taking a realistic look of like, where are you now? Mm-hmm. And the second step, once you have taken account for yourself, is just to take responsibility, right? So you've laid out all the things you are. Now take responsibility for every one of those things. Mm-hmm. And that's another level, because it's one thing to say, for example, in my case, I'm overweight. But a different thing to say, I'm overweight because of my actions. Yeah. Like it's not about, my mama's cooking was so delicious. Like, I ate this. My sleep is terrible because of me. I chose to work out this much. Mm. I chose to eat these things. I'm talking about myself here, right? Like, just take responsibility for everything.
Yeah. And even I think on this point, an important aspect of this is like, take responsibility even for those things that are not your fault, but are affecting you.
But are your responsibility.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah. Right. Like, there's plenty of things that it probably is not. I mean, like, most of what we inherit from our parents genetically honestly determines a lot of how we go through life, right? And is that technically our fault? Like, no, we didn't ask to be born to those parents, for example. But it doesn't really matter. I'm giving that as an example because it's just an easy one. There may be some things in your life that are happening to you that suck, or there may be some things in your life that have happened to you, and as a result, you have some kind of trauma. I mean, we just did the Alex Hormozy episode,
right?
And some of what he says on this actually makes sense, which is that, like, again, perhaps it isn't your fault. Perhaps it isn't your fault, but it is your responsibility to deal with it. And right. You can only go so long as a functioning adult. Forget like as a man, forget like as a rajul, right? Like, as a functioning adult, you can only go so long blaming it on something else.
The next is setting up a game plan and action. So for all of these areas in your life, you have to make decisions on how you're going to live, right? Do you want to improve any of these areas, right? Does your fitness need improvement, right? Does your finances need improvement, right? Okay. All these things, even the things that don't need improvement, you have to make a decision of what that area in your life is going to look like. That's why I say game plan and action, because it's like, even if you don't want to improve the thing, you have to make a decision of what it's going to look like. Mm-hmm. Because again, as a leader, like, you have to have an idea. Like, if fitness doesn't matter to you, that's fine. But don't be one of these people who are just like, I'll get to it. No, like, decide if it matters or not, because it will come down the line, even for picking a spouse.
Yeah.
We have to make those kinds of decisions. Do you want to speak on the game plan and action? I think you were talking about that earlier.
You want this. What are the things you need to get to do this? And this is not like, you kind of have to be careful. Because the general advice is like game plan and action, but you also have to be intentional about the goals that you choose, right? And the framework that you use to choose those goals, right? Like, for example, I think it's silly to say, okay, until I make 150K, I'm not going to get married.
Very, very silly.
Yeah, like, that's a goal.
It's pretty haram too.
That's a goal, but that's just a bad goal. Like straight up, especially in this circumstance. That's not to say don't try to get your money up, right? That you should try to get your money up. That's a good thing. But to have kind of like, so there has to be kind of some parameters that you're operating within. Obviously, the ones that we suggest are going to be ideally based on Islam, right? So if you're someone who's not making your prayers, you making your prayers on time is more important than you making 80K, for example.
Oof.
Right? or even moving out. You know, like, this is just the reality. Like, sometimes it's hard for us to kind of think of those things. But that's like, as far as like what's more important, God doesn't have anything that says you can't live with your parents. Right? Like there's nowhere in the Quran that says you can't live with your parents, but it does say you have to pray. So kind of looking at these action plan and game plan through those lenses, and kind of it takes some rewiring, honestly, because you think like even us here, it's like, oh, okay, like, you're young, you're like, okay, I want to move out, I want to have my own space, this isn't that for my wife. To do that, I need to make this much money, and it's like, bro, you're not even praying.
Step 4 is finding a spouse. Finding the spouse, I think the most important thing to do is to actually write down your absolute non-negotiables. Like, period, die on this hill. I was talking to a brother. I'll censor this. I'll censor this joke. But this is the real thing that happened. I'm just censoring. I was talking to a brother, and I was like, he was like, I want to get married. And I was like, oh, what kind of woman? Like, what are you into? And he was like, bro, like, I'm a very simple guy, bro. I just want someone with nice hijab. And I was really upset with him. And I was like, maybe I shouldn't have been like this, but I was just kind of upset with him. I started teasing him. And I was like, bro, don't tell me that. Like, be serious. And he was like, no, I'm serious. And I think he was like a little bit offended that, like, maybe he didn't think I was taking him seriously. And I was like, bro, it is more useful for me if you want me to look for a wife for you, that if you that you tell me you want a girl that's like 10 out of 10 good looking, or you tell me something really materialistic, like you want a girl who's like a Gymshark model, like one of these fitness girls on Instagram. That's more useful information for me, because then I can find that criteria fast. But instead you tell me you want a girl who's just modest. Like, let me tell you something. My modest and your modest might be very two different things, right? If hypothetically someone's mom doesn't wear hijab unless she's in the masjid, no one doesn't think their mom's not modest, right? And if my mom wears chador, right, all the time, then we have very two different opinions of modest. So I'm going to find you a wife that's going to be way too modest for you. And if you try to find me a wife, I'm going to be angry that you think that's modest. So find me an objective measure of like find a measure. Don't say something stupid and silly like just nice and modest. These are empty words. Be specific.
This is my personal advice. Anything else that's outside of those non-negotiables, even if they're not up to like the standard that you'd like to have them, and perhaps this is controversial, and maybe when you're younger you shouldn't think so much this way, but especially as you get older, the reality is you're never going to find that perfect partner. Right. Like that perfect partner just doesn't exist. Right. So settle.
I agree.
Settle.
Non-negotiable, hardcore, and hardcore. That's what you don't settle on. But
if you have a non-negotiable that's like,
that's right,
I want her to be 5'11". Like my wife has to be at least 5'11". Right?
Like you're aiming for tall woman.
tall woman, for example, and that's like absolutely non-negotiable. And then you look at it, you sit back, you're like, okay, statistically, like how many women are there over 5'11"? Not a lot. Like statistically speaking, there are not a lot of women that are over 5'11". And say hypothetically you're like 5'6" dude. You're like, so not only are there not a lot of women who are over 5'11", the percentage of women that are over 5'11" also have husbands or partners that are taller than them, and yet you're here 5'6". And so it's like, okay, you have this non-negotiable and you've been searching for 5 years and you can't find anyone because your criteria is stupid. So now the marketplace has signaled to you like, bro, change is non-negotiable because it doesn't make sense, right? So I think this is an interesting part of this. And then even when you get into like dowries and marriage and stuff like that, this becomes another kind of mechanism for filtering, which is, I don't want to get into it right now, but like it gets really deep and nerdy.
No, that's fair. That is an interesting point. I think
I mean, vice versa for like women.
It's
right?
a bit like
I only want someone who's 6'5". Like, do you know what percentage of the male population in America is like over 6 foot? Everything else, again, once you've done your non-negotiables, everything else settle on. If you would love someone to be an 8 out of 10 looks wise, and you find someone who matches all of what you're looking for on the non-negotiables, and they're like 7, settle. Don't be an idiot. Don't be an idiot. Look at me. Settle. That goes for men and women. Settle.
Mm-hmm. Because your non-negotiables will haunt you, and they will bite you in the butt. Now let's go to meeting women. You have determined your non-negotiables, right? So you know what you're looking for. Now let's meet women, right? I think this is where things often get the most gray, and people make a lot of mistakes here. So I think I'm going to make my advice really simple. When you find a sister you're interested in, okay, it's not haram to talk. First of all, like, honestly, like, it isn't haram to get to know a sister, right? In like those appropriate settings, not one-on-one, in those appropriate settings. Get to know her, right? Observe how she is with her friends and with the community, because that will give you important information. But honestly, I think as soon as you think you're maybe interested in getting to know her better, let it be known. Talk to her family. Talk to her family. And don't be scared, even though it will be the most nerve-wracking thing of your life.
I'd discourage young people from just going directly to the sister.
Fair.
Go through someone you trust, especially if they're local in the community. There's a good chance that someone knows them, right?
Right.
So like that's the way I'd recommend. And to Matty's point, this is sales, bro. This is sales.
This is sales. Can you sell yourself? Yeah.
And the number one
cold approach
rule in sales is keep going. So you dial one number, you get a no, call the next one. Every single no, think about it like this: every single no, you get closer to the yes.
That's right. It has to come at some point.
Yeah, and then sometimes in the no's, you actually get positive, like not positive, useful feedback from it too.
That's right.
Right? It's like no, because XYZ. Like maybe this person doesn't carry themselves that well, right? Yeah. They don't have that good of a reputation in the community. And you start learning these things about yourself. Now, sometimes you're not going to get that much feedback from it. Sometimes you get the call and it's just like, no, hang up. Like, right? You don't even get to say your script. You just hang up on. So sometimes those exist as well. But take every no you get as kind of like a learning opportunity as well. And don't hold on to this stuff. And
I want to circle back to my point real quick here. I'm purposely being vague because there's just too much specific circumstance information determining if you should talk to a girl's parents or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I think you should get straight to the point as soon as possible, because as soon as you start thinking, oh, I want to first see how she feels about me first, don't even think like that. I think that's an easy way to slip into haram, number one, because then you're trying to spark emotions, right? I don't think Islamically, I just don't think we play that game. Right? It's too slippery of a slope to get into haram business. It's too slippery a slope to get into flirting and all this kind of stuff. I think it's honestly attractive for a lot of... we want to get into female psychology a little bit here. Women want you to be the one who take the risk. I think even if it's alarming and abrupt, and I'm just speaking from experience here, I rather have been the brother who out of pocketly maybe have said, hey, you're trying to get married? I'd like to talk to you about marriage. Than the brother who tried to be her friend and tried to be her guy friend and was caught lacking texting her late at night. That's stupid. That's, for one, I feel like you diminish your manhood playing this game. And I think I'd rather stand out with masculine aura and take an L than be a little snake and try to be her friend first. Yeah. I know that sounds really aggressive, be a little snake. I'm not trying to offend people here, right? Like, no one here is perfect, but I'm just saying, like, I think we've all made mistakes, right? But it's like, don't play this guy friend business. You could be like an associate. I'm not saying like don't look at women. Do you understand what I'm trying to say here? Like, help me out here. Like, I'm not saying don't look or like be like the guy. Don't be too standoffish for the sake of being halal. Like, be personable. But I'm saying it's like, oh, like let's say I like this girl like at my youth circle, right? Don't try to be friends. Be like, if try to work on a project with her, talk to her at youth circle, ask her what she's studying, crack a smile. I'm not saying, saying don't make her smile, but after youth circle, don't be like, hey, let's get some coffee. What are you doing after this? Just us two, right? Like, let's text at 1 a.m. Bro, devil hour. You texting this shorty after 12, it's all shaitan, bro.
I would say even before that.
If Maklib is in and you texting her, Astaghfirullah, brother.
Brother,
Do not text a sister for later on trying to get ready for marriage, right? And then being like, oh yeah, I'll talk to my dad in 3 months, but I want to tell you that I'm anxious right now. Oh, take a deep breath right now. Brother, she's ready for a marriage. She'll talk to her parents in like a week or so.
Mm-hmm.
Again, don't be scared of being weird when doing the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
You are going, it's only going to get harder and harder to get married. I remember when I was trying to get married, it was just weird. It was just terrible having to like be the kind of person. Might have to feel weird because I know like everyone around us is dating, and you're going to have some friends who are dating. You're going to have some friends who maybe are in haram relationships here and there. I will say this. Marriage is prescribed to us in the Quran, right? So I want you to tell yourself when you're in your most down bad, when you're in your most just downtrodden state, and you feel terrible, and you feel like I'm knocking on doors here and no one wants to buy the product, just tell yourself, like, if your intentions are right, you're on God's side here. God told you to get married. Whenever any kind of uncle, whenever anyone tells you, why are you trying to get married, just get a girlfriend, or why are you trying to get married, get your money up first, or why, you're on God's side. So screw when anyone tells you if they're telling you something that's against God. I want you to know something. Your prophets got married when they were poor. The Sahaba got married when they were poor. Anyone who tries to tell you put dunya first, I want you to ignore all of their advice. I'm sorry. I want you to ignore all of it.
Yeah.
Because when I was trying to get married, I was like 17 or 18, and I wasn't ready yet. I had people telling me I should get a girlfriend. I swear. I had people telling me I should just get a girlfriend. I had people telling me don't get married yet. And yeah, I got married at 21, right? But I'm telling you this. If God wants you to have something, you're going to have something. And we're doing this for the sake of God. Because if you're not doing this for the sake of God, get a girlfriend right now. Mm. That's the non-godly route, right? But if you're doing it for the sake of God, do it.
Yeah. Stop
being scared. And if you're scared, you're going to be scared. Do it despite being scared. Mm-hmm. If your parents say, brothers, I'm telling you, brothers, if your parents say you're not ready for marriage yet, prove them wrong. Don't wait for your mom and dad to say you're ready for get married. You don't need to wait for your mom and dad, right? Especially as a man, you don't need your father's or your mother's approval to get married. Mm. I don't care. I don't care. You don't need their approval. You always need to respect your parents. But did you know Islamically, respecting your parents doesn't mean listening to your parents.